Go ahead and tell me what are some of the things that you found in this passage that Aaron points out, differences between Acts and Paul's letters.
In the Galatians, after he had the vision of Jesus, he came to believe in him, and he did not go to Jerusalem, but in the Acts, that was reversed.
Yeah, now we're going to talk a little bit about this when we read the letter to the Galatians, but one of the things that Paul wants to do in the letter to the Galatians is establish his own authority. He wants to demonstrate to the Galatians that he has the word directly from God. He didn't learn the gospel from Peter or from one of the other apostles. He learned it directly from Jesus. And he says, like, I had this experience and then I went away. I didn't go through Jerusalem. I didn't pick up anything from the guys in Jerusalem. However, in Acts, it says that right after he had his vision with Jesus, he went over to Jerusalem and, got to 411 on what was going down from them. May not be a huge difference, but it is a difference between these things. And if you're a scholar, which one do you presume is probably more reliable?
The one that is actually from Paul.
Yeah. What Paul wrote himself is probably more reliable than what it says about him 40 years later in the Gospel of Acts. The Acts of the Apostles. What else was somewhat significant difference between what Paul wrote about himself and what it says about him in the Acts of the Apostles? Jim?
In the Acts, Paul says that pagans can't be held accountable because they're ignorant of God's existence. But then in the letters, he says that they do know about his existence and just have chose to ignore it.
Yeah, in the letters, the problem, and this is a problem perennially for Christians, like, what do you do about people who have never heard about Jesus, right? If you grew up in China and never met a Christian in your life, are you going to hell because you didn't hear the message of Jesus? Well, Paul's not talking about exactly that sort of thing, but he's talking about these gods that the pagans have. Are they guilty because they didn't know Jesus? Or do they get away scot-free because they didn't know Jesus? Well, he says one thing in the Acts of the Apostles, and he says something else in his own letters. That seems to be a pretty substantial theological difference. What else? Yeah.
I guess in the Acts that they're supposedly addressed to Jewish audiences, where in the letters he repeatedly says that his mission was to the Gentiles.
Yeah. Paul presents himself as someone who's completely unconcerned with giving Jesus' message to Jews. He's all about going to the Gentiles. However, like you point out, in Acts, he's going around speaking at synagogues. What's a synagogue? It's not a temple, because there was only one temple in Jerusalem, but there were many synagogues. It was a Jewish place of worship. According to Acts, he's going around. If he goes to a new city like Corinth or something, or Thessalonica, what he does first is go to the synagogue and start preaching to the Jews, which is kind of contradicts what he says in his letters, where he's like, I was only concerned with the Gentiles. Now, it's because of discrepancies like this that scholars, when trying to reconstruct what did Paul really do, say, and what did he think, they rely primarily on the authentic Pauline letters rather than what it says about him in the Acts of the Apostles. And in fact, when reconstructing what Paul did or said, they pretty much ignore the Acts of the Apostles. One thing that Aaron points out, that by reading letters, you're only getting one side of a conversation. The fact that Paul is writing a letter is usually, he's writing in response to somebody who's written him a letter, and he's responding to it. People have written him from the church at Thessalonica asking him questions, and he writes a letter in response. However, this sometimes makes it difficult for us to understand precisely what he's talking about. And Ehrman gives the example of hearing someone on the phone, right? You guys have come in on people like your mom or dad talking on the phone, and you're trying to figure out who they're talking to or what they're talking about from only hearing one half of the conversation. I assume you guys have had that experience before, right? You're like, who are they talking to? What are they talking about? Why are they talking about me? This is what happens when we're reading Paul's letters. We're only getting his side of the conversation. We don't have the records or copies of the letters written to him. We just have his letters written to them. So we kind of have to do some guesswork trying to figure out what the other side of the conversation was like. This is what he's talking about when he says, like, we have to try to reconstruct the context in which he wrote the letter. What was he responding to? And he points out a general principle of interpretation. Context is everything, and he gives the example of, I love this course. How many different meanings does he give to the term, I love this course? What are some of the different things that could mean? It could be sarcastic, right? If Jackie says, I love this course, you guys can bet she means it in a sarcastic way, right, Jackie? I'm kidding. What else could I love this course mean?
You really do like it.
Could mean you really do like it. What else?
Just to put it in.
What's that?
Just to maybe to confuse people. When you say one thing,
Yeah, I mean, it could be. That's not one of the things that Ehrman says.
You say like course in golf.
Yeah, if you're on the golf course and you say, I love this course, it means something rather different than if you're here. If you say it at a racetrack, right? If you go to the Daytona 500 and you're like, I love this course, I love the Daytona racetrack, right? That means something different. Context is everything for interpretation. To understand what Paul is saying, you've got to kind of reconstruct the context. I mean, every once in a while, somebody watches Stephen Colbert, right? And they don't get that it's supposed to be satire. Have any of you guys have friends or family members who watch satirical shows and they didn't realize it was satire? Or you guys have all read The Onion, right? You've heard of The Onion, the newspaper? It's a satire. Every once in a while, I have a family member who reads something in The Onion and they think it's real, right? You have to know the context, if it's meant as satire, if it's not meant as satire, etc. Now, this doesn't relate to Paul specifically, this relates to interpretation in general. And part of what I've tried to do earlier in the course, right, is give you some context. When somebody says Messiah in the first century, what they're probably thinking of is not... they're probably not thinking of Messiah as a divine figure. They're probably thinking of Messiah as in the Maccabean guys were messiahs, right? They overthrew the Greeks and they established their own kingdom, right? Knowing what Messiah means in the first century, you have to understand the context of how were they using the word Messiah? What might they have been referring to? Well, one of the things that we can be certain of Paul seems to have been a Pharisee. He seems to self-identify as such. Now, what were some of the unique features of Pharisees?
Okay, the ones that were like powerful with the Romans.
No, that was the Sadducees seemed to have power. What were the Pharisees doing?
They, did they develop the oral law?
Yeah, they developed the oral law or the oral Torah, and what was the oral law?